Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where last episode we docked up our Falcon 9 Dragon capsule to the ISS, and we have now taken delivery of our mounting points. We now need to install those, and I have no idea where the actual installation of them are, but it was stated that these are to provide a grapple point for the Canadarm to interact with radiators. Now, we have radiators in a couple of positions. We have some small radiators out over here in the Russian section. We have, I think, no radiators in the US section. Correct. We do, however, have some small radiators on our power trusses, and we also have large radiators here, which are currently furled and would eventually be utilized, but for now are not being utilized. So for the moment, I'm going to assume it's these large radiators in question, and we could just add like a grapple fixture on each of these center points, perhaps. That might not be a bad place to put that. So the question is, can we reach that from here? Well, probably no. Let's have Bill EVA, and we'll see what we're going to do as far as moving these parts around goes. I'm thinking maybe we just grab them out of here, and we move them into maybe like this science lab, or into one of these up over here. Maybe. I'm not 100% certain yet, but we can certainly grab them and move them somewhere somewhat useful. Alternatively, we could simply just place them here. So that's one of them, but we need our mount for the grapple point. So we place that there, and then this guy would get placed about here, and that puts us close to where this needs to go. That's obviously not its final position, but we'll just put it there for now. Then we would need to go down to the other side. The next one would end up going down over here, right? So we can simply grab this guy. And I'm going to put it, I think... I don't like putting it there. I suppose we could put it out this way. Sure, why not? That'll be fine. We can just put it there. It'll be nice and convenient for us. So now we're going to need to grab the mount point. And yeah, we have a little bit of momentum here, no doubt about that. Let's grab the mount point before we drift out of range. There we go. And are we in range to actually mount this in its correct position? I mean, yes, it's rotated wrong. So we'd end up wanting to place it about there or so. Now that's going to move with our rotation here. So it's going to kind of slide a little bit. Actually, we impacted here. That got rid of most of our rotation, which is convenient. So, oh, we're apparently welding now? That was a delayed reaction, Bill. Sure. Okay, well, we're just going to head up over this direction. And I want to just position us basically right here. Cool. Now, I'm going to tweak the positioning of this guy using the move tool. And I want to do this in local coordinates, and we'll just position it about there and about there. Looks good. And now I'm going to, in place mode, grab this guy. We just need to mount him on top. And that is what we're going to call our grapple point. This is probably not in the correct position, but I could find almost no details about these. I couldn't even find pictures of the actual grapple points, so this is an obscure one, no doubt about it. So we're just going to then rotate this guy to be about there or so. Go ahead and toggle snap. I want this to be snapped into a position. Yeah, that should do just fine. So we're going to call that one grapple point installed, based on the information we have anyway. And we're just going to make our way up over this way and get the second grapple point going. So that will, of course, be up over here, and our grapple points should be right up over here. Cool. I'm wondering where our ladders here are, because it would be very convenient to grab onto our ladder here, but I think that that's in a bad position for us. Actually, it's over on the other side. We could simply grab onto the cupola module's ladder, so that would be okay. Yeah. Let's just hop right on in over here. We'll grab onto that. Perfect. So from here, we should be able to do this relatively easily. If we can reach over here, which I think we can. Yeah, we absolutely can. So let's get that rotated to go in not exactly that direction. Let's see here. We need to, like, rotate this around. Oh, we need to turn snapping off for this. That's what the problem is there. Okay. So with snapping off, we need to get this rotation correct. Hang on. I can't really see very well from here. We're a long ways away, and I'm not exactly sure what we've got going on here. I see. Okay. Well, that's reasonably fine. We can just mount this guy about here, and then move it into position. So, we're going to use the move tool as soon as this gets caught up. Eventually, it'll get there. Cool. Using the move tool, we are going to make sure that that's in local, which it is, and we're just going to position this about like this or so. How's that positioning looking? It's close, but I suspect it's off in this direction. Actually, that's pretty close now that I look at it. We're going to call that good, and we are going to attach this grapple point. Fantastic. So this is going to need to be rotated to be this direction. Cool. And I think that's actually in a good orientation, too. I don't think we need to rotate that. Excellent. Yeah, looks like a good orientation. So I think we're done here. We can now let go, and we can head back into our Falcon 9. As soon as Bill gets turned around anyway, and we know what direction our vectoring is. Okay, looks good. So from here, where is our airlock? Our airlock is over on this side? Okay. Seems absolutely fine. Inward we go. And then we're going to have to test our deceleration without getting rid of our trunk section way too early this time. Unfortunately, we did not succeed in the recovery of our booster, but we will get better at that. It's just going to require a little bit of manual braking, I think. But I do think that the air brakes were not in the correct configuration as we landed there. So that's something that we will definitely be testing in the next flight. For now, we can close our service bay, and we're done here. So we can undock here. There we go. I'm just wondering if this is at an angle. No, it's about right. Okay, sounds good. So we're going to hop on over to our Falcon 9, put this in kill rot. I keep calling it, this is a Dragon. This is not a Falcon 9. The Falcon 9 is the rocket, the Dragon is the capsule. So we're going to pull back over here and get ourselves a little bit of distance from the ISS. Cool, that looks good. And let's close our docking port. We no longer need that open. We can also start orienting ourselves into an orbital retrograde position. We can be facing prograde if we're just going to be using our monoprop, but since the plan is, in fact, to utilize these Separatrons, that is going, and that is set up correctly here, that is going to need to be pointing in the retrograde direction, not in the prograde direction. Okay, so we should be pretty clear to just burn out this direction. So let's see how far just the Separatrons get us. The answer is quite a ways. They're very loud, there's no doubt about that. Okay, now that they're no longer happening, they are indeed very loud. And I'm going to turn RCS on, and we're going to continue to accelerate in this direction, because that's going to need to happen for a while. I'm not going to physics warp while we're close to the station here, but we will probably want to physics warp this. So we're just bringing that right on down, we're accelerating, but we did manage to shed approximately 100 kilometers of our altitude with that. It was definitely a less powerful burn than when we had the trunk section gotten rid of, but that's not shocking. There's a lot of weight, particularly in this monoprop tank, right? So that is okay. We're about a kilometer away from the station right now and continuing to decelerate, but this deceleration is quite slow. But we will physics warp it once we get out of the loaded physics range of the station, which will be about another kilometer. That's okay. We can see here just how slow it is to lower with our monoprop, and this was the concern. No doubt about it. We'll be able to do it, but it's not going to be peak efficiency, that's for sure, in terms of time. So the question then becomes, how do we want to handle that? Well, I mean, I'm not sure there's any handling to be done about it. That's just the design we've chosen. If we want to go with a different design, we would want to bring less monoprop, a little liquid fuel, and some liquid fuel engines in place of these solid fuel engines. Would be the way that we'd do that. So like some twitches. The question with that, of course, is where would we put the monoprop, right? We've just unloaded the station, so let's bring this up to 4x time acceleration. And at 4x, this is actually not too bad in terms of the deceleration. Yeah, this is reasonable, I think. So I think we can manage with this as it is. Of course, these SRBs are, you know, not as powerful as we would like them to be. We maybe upgrade the SRBs from the Sepratron 1s to maybe slightly more powerful Sepratrons. That could get us a decent amount of the distance. We'll see what that ends up looking like once we recover this. But no, on Physics Warp, we're down to 150. This is going reasonably quickly. It's not fast, but it's not terribly slow either. So that seems okay. We're just going to bring this down to about 10 kilometers, down to 120 now. Yeah, this seems absolutely fine. Now, these photovoltaic panels are retractable, and that does add expenditure to this, but it's actually useless because the photovoltaic panels are going to be jettisoned. So that's a purely aesthetic choice. I don't love that one either, but here we are. So we're down to 70 kilometers. Our periapsis is now officially in the atmosphere, so we are on a return course. How much monoprop do we have left? Lots. Ridiculous amounts of monoprop left. So that's absolutely fine. Down to 35 kilometers on our periapsis. We're just taking it down to 10. 25. 20. 15. And good enough. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to ditch the trunk section. We no longer need it, although we can wait until it's basically re-entry. If we do that, we run the risk of impacting it. Like, that's a higher risk. So I think what we do right now is we just go to a radial direction, and we jettison it in this direction, like so. And then we just hop over to retrograde. We do not need to burn any of the monoprop that we have in here, and our electric charge should be plenty to hold us. So that should be absolutely fine. We can use additional monoprop if we need it, but we really, really shouldn't. Okay, let's warp on forward. And bringing ourselves down to being within the atmosphere. Of course, this will enter the atmosphere before us since we ejected it towards the planet. Okay, we are in atmosphere. Let's reorient to be heat shield first. And this will be, I think, less extreme than our previous attempt. Or not really attempt. Than our previous recovery. But it should be absolutely fine. I don't foresee any problems here. We'll physics warp our way through the atmosphere. And the trunk section should probably burn up before it hits the ground, like, to be realistic. Actually, yeah, there it goes a little bit. Goodbye, trunk section. Hopefully the rest of it burns up, too. That would be ideal. So we're decelerating here pretty rapidly. No doubt about that. This looks... this might actually be a water landing. It doesn't really matter. We can do both. But it's more realistic to have it be a land landing. Actually, look at our deceleration. This is going to be land. Okay, looks good. We prefer a land landing since that is the realistic way to do it. Drogues are out. And mains are out. And this is a perfectly safe landing. We have nothing to fear. Beautiful. So, as far as that goes, I'd say that we've pretty thoroughly proofed most of the stages of this mechanism. I would like to think about perhaps upgrading our Sepratrons here. But if we upgrade them too far, we're going to have some issues. No doubt about that. Speaking of issues, these trees can't decide if they exist or not. They have decided they exist. Okay, good to know. The trees have decided that they do, in fact, exist. Sounds good. But yeah, if we were to boost up the power of the Separatrons a little bit, that might not be too bad. They're well-sized right now. I like the sizing of them. And boosting them up might be a little bit problematic in that regard. We'll see what our options are as soon as we recover this. By the way, this was our first flight to the ISS under contract, so we do get payment for that one, which is good. Even if we end up expending the first stage and we don't recover it, we'll be very solidly in the green. As far as our 200,000 per flight goes, yeah, very solidly in the green. It was a little bit iffy with the space shuttle, depending on how well our recovery went. But in reality, we did end up making profit off of the space shuttle program. Barely, in most cases, but we did. So that's all great. At this point, we need to get our payment, and this will be, like, no matter what happens, assuming we have a successful mission, it's 100,000 in pure profit every time. Recovery will get us back another, like, I think it'll get us back another, like, 50 to 55,000, depending on how the recovery goes. Well, like, 7 to 55,000. In this case, it was 7. We need to get our payment, of course, and we're going to do exactly that. And then I want to hop into the VAB. As far as that ground recovery goes, the problem there was a problem that was faced considerably by SpaceX in reality. That problem was too much horizontal drift, with the rocket not being able to turn to get the engines in position to bring it down. That is something that could be corrected manually, and it'll require a little bit of practice, but I'm sure we'll get there. So let's open up the Falcon 9 here. I want to think about a potential upgrade to the... Oh, wow. This is 65,000. I thought it was like 90,000. Never mind. I was going off of the upgraded engine number. So this is actually like 140K in pure profit every time, and it's going to be another 45K-ish if we recover this. It'll be a little less than that. It'll be like 35 to 40K. Yeah, that's going to be extremely significant profit margins. Insane. So we need to turn off the pitch and yaw out here immediately, because we don't actually want this to be active right away. But what we do need to do, of course, well, we don't need to do this, but I want to think about upgrading these Separatrons. They burn for a decent amount of time, and they're useful for that deorbit burn to accelerate that away from the station. I like that usage of them. But, of course, it's not exactly realistic. But the bigger problem here is that, let's see here, this should be under, I believe, staging? Is it in here? No, I'm pretty sure it's under staging, or coupling, for the Separatrons. I have forgotten where they are located. That's the Separatron 1 there. Okay, so this is what we have right now. There are other Separatrons, right? I mean, there's the shrimp, which is way too big. Hilarious, but way too big. No doubt about it. Now, we can also have these not be at this angle, and that would be a little bit more efficient if they were mounted down here. So that would end up being, you know, mounting them here. And that's something we could certainly do. We definitely could do that. So that would end up... I don't love this snapping position, so I'm going to mount it here. And then this one would be mounting here. That will boost their efficiency a little bit, because they're going to be boosting straight instead of boosting at an angle. So that would be an upgrade, certainly. Maybe move these over a little bit to be about here, and this one to be about here. Something like that. That should be a decent upgrade for the Separatrons, but it's not really going to fix it. They're called the Sepratron 1. Is there a Sepratron 2? Not that we have unlocked. Okay, we might not have unlocked it. That's a possibility. So for now, we of course need to get our next payload going here. Let me take a look at that. Do we have time to do that this episode? I wouldn't have expected that, for sure. Let's see here. Okay, so it is going to end up being... Let's see, we just did the HRSGF. That was the flight that we just did. So next up would be the beam. This would be the Bigelow Expandable Activity Module. Okay. So this is an inflatable module, and that's absolutely fine. Where does that get attached? Oh, right there. Okay, so that gets attached on the aft side of the Tranquility node. Gotcha. What all do we have for inflatable components? Well, we've got the heat shield. We've got the inflatable airlock, and that's pretty much it. So as far as the inflatable components go, we've got this guy, and we've got this guy. Neither one are really well suited to be brought up in our service bay, but we could maybe, like, make something out of an engine plate and some inflatable airlocks here. We're, of course, going to need to get rid of our previous payload. So we could make something that broadly fits the bill. So if we did an engine plate here, I would want this to be like a 1.25 meter. And how would we actually get it out of the service bay? That's a question we should ask. The service bay is very small. So at least in comparison to what we're used to. An EP-25 would fill the entire service bay, which might or might not be what we want. I think an EP-18 would be closer to what we want. This is going to need to be docked, and on the Tranquility node, I believe that means that it's going to need a large docking port. We can bring a small docking port just in case that's wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's a large docking port. So I'll just put a Clampatron docking port junior in here, and then we're going to grab a large docking port. And that is going to end up going on this side here. I don't yet know how we're going to deploy this. That's going to be very interesting. As far as the inflatable airlocks go... okay, it got placed there. Sure. As far as the inflatable airlocks go, we can flip this guy around, although we'd have to reroute this. We would have to reroute it. Okay, let's just start that one over for the time being. What I want to do is... Actually... we're going to need to open up this docking port for right now. And then we're going to need to grab this docking port. Actually, let's grab a new one. There's no attachment point here? Okay, remarkable. We're going to need to attach it like this then. And we'll need to put on our engine plate here. So this will be an EP-18. I want to flip that around, and that'll end up going somewhere like that. Let's make this be, I'm thinking like 4x1. So something like this. And then when all of these get inflated, it'll kind of create the idea of having a larger inflatable module here. Kind of like that. Would be the idea. Now then. We can put our docking port back on, and that can get closed. And as far as all of this goes, we can deflate all of these. It'll be a relatively compact module when it's deflated, so that'll be good. And as far as deployment here goes, that's going to be the interesting part. How do we want to deploy this? Currently, this is our root part, and that's what we want to attach to the station, right? So this would need to be brought in something kind of like this. There's no attachment point on the other side. We might just have to rebuild it once we get there. I suppose we could do that. So that would be reasonably fine. From here, we would simply put in our strut connector. And I would just connect these something kind of like that. And just make sure it's nice and secure. So what this is going to end up doing... Let's see, I'm just thinking about what direction this connects in. Yeah. Okay. So this would be, in theory, undockable, but we would just need to disassemble it and reassemble it on the station without, like, deploying it. In reality, it should be undocked, and it should be grabbed with the Canadarm and installed with that. But we don't have that option because of KSP limitations, so we'll have to do it the other way. But it is set up so that it can be undocked here, grabbed with the Canadarm, and removed that way. Cool. So I think we're ready to go on this. I'm going to call this the Falcon 9 Beam. There we go. And that'll be absolutely fine. We can get this launched next episode. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Shadow Wolf, Kentogan, Ali Lee, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12 UK, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.